Hello there, people. This is Calm Double O here, aka Jason Rolfe. Just coming to you here with kind of my story about Nationals, UK Nationals 2023. The hero that I went in with, the hero that I played, and just kind of my draft rounds, how I did, etc., etc. It is 30 degrees here right now in the UK. We're having a heat wave, so. If you do hear any background noise, I do apologize. It's gonna be unedited, just off the dome. And I have my windows open. I'm not gonna close them because I would just boil. So, just a quick disclaimer. So I did finish 10th. I think it was about 107 players. I finished 10th. It was my first nationals. My first tier 3 event outside of calling Birmingham. It was my second tier 3 event. My first tier 3 drafting. I picked Bravo. The reason why I played Bravo, there's a little bit of a backstory. At Birmingham, I played Lexi, and I lost 2 mirrors. I went 4-3, and I just felt in the mirror there wasn't much agency. Like, of course, there is still skill in the game, 100%, but I just felt too much variance in the dice rolls, the power cards, etc. So I wanted to pick up a deck that kind of minimized variance as much as possible. After I crashed out of Birmingham, day 2 I sat on the sidelines watching the top tables, and I remember distinctively seeing both Sebastian Grondel and Pablo Pintor on their Fatigue Bravo lists. But the lists were both quite different, but I would say time very similar. They were doing the same idea. They were both running the Fighting Spirit tech, the blue one, to block out Lexi. So I looked at that and I saw how well they were doing, and I just thought, I wanna play this deck. This looks like this is gonna be the deck for me. So after that, I decided that I was gonna pick up Bravo and start testing it for NATS. I think so I've been playing it about a month. I think Calling Birmingham was about a month before NATS, around that kind of time period, maybe give or take a little bit. But that's how I ended up on the deck. The basics of the deck, it runs every blue 6, of course. That's what you normally do. We're actually at 40 blues. If I look at the stats here, 37 blues, but then on the sideboard you've got the 3 warmongers, which this is incorrect. This sideboarding and stuff isn't really correct. You run 40 blues into every matchup. So this is just an old format. But yeah, we run, because at one time we wasn't running it into, I think, certain matchups like Leviathan, but we worked out that we wanted 40 blues. One of the guys that I worked on this list with extensively, Ilias Karamanis. A bona fide pro in the fab scene. I've just started to play and test with him, and he told me he's got a very numbers based approach to the game, and we got to a point near the end of our testing where he decided that he was going to play Lexi. He didn't want to play Bravo, but 90% of the time before Nats we were testing, he was on Bravo as well, so he was working on the list hard with me. He said, let's go to 38 to 40 blues, and I just said, like, I'm happy with 38 blues. I don't want to change the list anymore. Like, 40 blues makes no sense. Like, it makes sense, but like, I don't think it's gonna make a big difference. Okay, so we just left it at that. And then the next day I woke up, and shout out to Alan Lube, by the way, who finished 9th in the American US Nats with Bravo. I opened his video, and very quickly he said that he moved up to 40 blues, and it felt a lot better. Because there were hands where, when you have less than 40 blues, you do have a lot of hands where it's like Crippling Crush with another red in hand or something like that, right? It was another thing that as well, a shout out from Alan Lube, is I moved down to 1 Fate for Scene. I think it was on 2 or 3 beforehand. Moving down to 1 Fate for Scene, because you also have a situation where you're on the roll, you're crushing, and then you just draw like 2 D-reacts, and it just feels awful. It just completely kills your tempo. So shout out to Alan Lube on that kind of evolution of the deck. So when I saw that he'd moved to 40 blues, I thought, Ilias is telling me 40 blues. Alan's just finished 9th in US Nats. He's telling me 40 blues. At this point, I'd be silly to not at least test it, right? So I moved to 40 blues, and immediately I felt a big difference. I took the deck to the shop, and there was just, not only was like, I would draw in, a Starstruck with 3 blues, or a Spinal Crush with 3 blues, or a Crippling Crush with 3 blues. Not only was that happening more often, it was happening in a row. There was like multiple games both on Talishar testing and in the shop, where I would just draw back-to-back crippling crush with 3 blues. It was insane how much the difference feels. You can actually feel the difference between 38 and 40 blues. So I was impressed by that. I think, you know, where we end up on the deck with 40 blues was fantastic. I really liked the construction of the deck. At one time we weren't running Command and Conquer, but it's just too important. It's too important. It's just too much of a good card. It's great into a lot of the matchups where you want to be aggressive. Obviously amazing against Lexi, very good against Dromai with Pummel, very good against Icelander. So you run all 40 blues in every matchup. I do have matchups. I will post a link to this in the description. We do have a matchup, for every single hero. But I won't go over that in this video because it will take too long. So I'll just kind of simplify what certain pieces are for. So you pretty much run all of this into everyone. The 2 choke slams. Choke slams, one of the card that was, you know, moved out and moved in and moved to 3, moved to 2, moved to 1 so many times. We rested on 2. I think it's still very good into certain matchups. Obviously, very good into like Lexi, very good into Briar. Key into the Briar strategy, which I'll discuss later. Also amazing when you block with Unity, when you block with Starstruck and get the Unity proc. Very good for getting a 2 card choke slam, which is 4 value, right? 2 card 8 with the crush effect is amazing. So I really like the idea of blocking with Starstruck and a card and choke slamming off that. So you don't want it into every matchup, but it definitely has its place in the deck. 1 Fate for Seeing, we move down to 1 again, just to give more consistency on the game plans where you need to, you know, be consistently crushing or aim to put as much pressure as you can on the opponents. We move down to 1 Fate. Feels good. Never really missed having 2 Fates or 3 Fates. So yeah, really like that. Pulverize is amazing. You run it as first into a few things like a Zero. You run it as first. It's very good into the Mirror. It's very good into Dromai. It was very good into Fatigue Briar because it takes all the cards. So Pulverize has its place. Very strong card. Obviously, you know, coming in for 14 and the hit effect is on hit rather than a crush effect. So, but you really want to be using it. Most of the time, if you're actually casting this card, not blocking with it, it's because you got a Showtime or an Imposing Visage at turn 0. That's another point I want to make actually. Imposing Visage. I see a lot of people aren't running this. I think this is amazing. It's a non-attack action. But it's really gives you more consistency on your high roll. So turn 0, the amount of times you Showtime on Imposing Visage is insane. And obviously that is crazy. Even if you don't have Pulverize in the deck at the point, you just bring in a Crippling Crush, getting to draw 1 card of Showtime on going forward gives you an immense amount of tempo. So I think this card is very good. It's one of the cards that me and Ilias put back in straight away. So basically what happened, how this deck evolved is we took Pablo's list. We changed Pablo's list to be more fatiguey. Then we realized that it's the fatigue is not like basically at Birmingham, brothers were easily able to fatigue Lexi because Oldhim had just LL'd and people got a bit loose when it came to fighting fatigue strategies, because I think people were thinking, you know, fatigue was going to be less of an element because Oldhim was gone. And then they came in with these bulky Bravo lists with a million blocks, million D-React staunches, you know, Heart of Fire, etc. And the Lexis just weren't ready for it, right? The aggro decks weren't ready for it. But after Birmingham, when there was 3 Bravos in the top 8, people retuned their Lexi list. And they started to add things like Art of War. They started to run like 67 cards, Remembrance, you know, Lightning Presses, all this kind of anti-fatigue tech. So we quickly discovered that it wasn't a plan. It wasn't a consistent game plan to keep attempting to fatigue Lexi. So our game plan into Lexi was just to try and trade your equipment early for crushes. So you wanna the ideal start is starting with like a Spinal in hand, or you know, a Starstruck, throw at them, they give you armor, or they don't give you armor, then you draw another threat. If you can get, you know, don't get me wrong, you can't just keep crushing them to death. I mean, it can happen, but it's very rare. But if you can get 2 or 3 in a row, and then you can kind of get a life advantage and even a card advantage, then you can kind of pivot back to a slower plan. But then let's say you start you give them the tempo and you go slower, And then eventually you might draw another good hand or set up a Starstruck or another Crippling Crush or even a Command and Conquer Pummel, wherever it is, to get tempo back. Then you want to trade your equipment again, or even trade life if you've got enough life, and go back to that. You basically want to like pick your spots to keep them disrupted. You just want to disrupt them as much as possible, and that's kind of the winning line. It's obviously a lot less consistent than what the fatigue plan was at Birmingham, but it's just how we've had to adapt the deck, because the fatigue plan has like almost 0% into a decent Lexi on you know their new lists that they're running, and I was very happy with that success rate, and enough for me to go to NATS. It was kind of coin flippy in the sense it's very draw dependent, but I was very happy with it. So that's where we ended up with that. Moving back to the sideboard, Pummel, amazing into Icelander, amazing with Command and Conquer into Lexi, amazing to any matchup that you want to be more aggressive. You want into stuff like Azuri. The mirror, it's amazing. I think that's it really. But yeah, the Pummel, Dromai, basically anything you run in Anaphos. Even sometimes when you run the shield, actually, there's a couple matchups. But mainly when you're running Anaphos and you're going for aggressive plan with the 3 Zealous Beltons, right? So Sigil again, don't run it into all matchups if you're being aggressive, but it's very good into anything you want to fatigue or anything that's kind of more grindy. Sync Blows again, D-Reacts, you don't run them into stuff like Icelander. You don't run them into Dromai, but you run them to pretty much everything else. There may be a few exceptions, but yeah, it's just the D-React package is basically Sync Below's Fate for Scene 2 Staunch. So you're running six D-Reacts. Spinal Crush again, you take it out when you don't need... you take it out into the mirror. We found that it was good to take it out in the mirror. And you also take it out against Rune Blades when you're trying to fatigue them, which I'll talk about a little bit later. But you take it out against Rune Blade because you don't want too many reds in the deck. Staunch again, D-React, run into stuff like Azuri, Azalea, amazing to Azalea. We don't run it into Lexi. We used to, but we don't anymore because we want to be more aggressive. We run it into anything that's fatiguey. We run it into the Rune Blades. We run it into the mirror. It's fantastic in the mirror just to hold it into Arsenal. Sometimes you'll do it for 10 and you get fantastic value like a Crippling Crush or Starstruck. So yeah, Staunch, very, very good. We went down to 2 though. We cut down to 2 because we needed space for other pieces in the deck. And we was happy with that. We didn't think it harmed the chances too much. 3 Zealous Beltwin is when you're trying to be aggressive. You know, a big part of Bravo's plan into any match he wants to be aggressive is the Zealous into Anaphos or the Rouse into Anaphos. Both very, very good plays. Keep tempo, to push awkward breakpoints, damage that's very hard to block. Very good into the mirror, very good into Dromai, very good into Azuri. Amazing to Icelander. There's probably a couple more, but that's what I've got off the top of my head. But yeah, just anything you want. There's kind of 2 packages, right? You've got the aggressive package, which runs 2 Pummel, 3 Zealous Belton, and Anaphos. That's when you want to be aggressive. You kind of want to do that when you can't fatigue. I kind of only want to be aggressive if I don't believe I can consistently fatigue the opponent. So that's kind of what the Anaphos package is. Then you got the more defensive package, which is kind of typically your D-React package, Sigils, and then either Buckler or Rampart, depending on the matchup. That's when you run like 63, 66, and you're aiming to fatigue, aiming to deck out. Don't get me wrong, when you are in those matchups, sometimes you can just kill them, because what often can happen, if someone figures out they're getting fatigued in the middle of the game, or like the first few turns in, they'll try to start setting up turns to get over your blocks. And the problem is, this isn't Ultim, this is Bravo, right? So when you try to do that, you're still running stuff like Crippling and Starstruck. Then they start getting these thrown at them and dominated. It becomes very nasty. You can often life gap your opponent by doing that, and then you can finish them off with, you know, you can start to trade with them. It's just something you need reps on, right? And you can start to figure out the spots where you're able to, you know, come off the fatigue plan. The thing about Bravo is a lot of adaptation. There's a lot of adaptation in the game. Like, are you playing more slowly and blocking out more, or are you playing more aggressively and, you know, trading and playing for tempo and playing big attacks, playing rouses, playing pummels, rather than blocking? You know, it's something you have to have a sense for, which you do as you play more of the hero. It's something that I'm kind of improving day by day, because I'm still very new to the hero myself. So, but presenting the package, wherever you present an aggressive package or a more defensive package with the Buckler and Titan's Fist or Titan's Fist Rampart, in the game, you're never just fully blocking out or fully being aggressive. It it shifts, right? The tide shifts in the game, and it's just something you really need to become adept at. But yeah, that's a big part of Bravo and why I love it, because you do have that decision of when to go fast or when to go slow. So yeah, Staunch, Zealous, Warmongers is in the deck all the time. It shouldn't be on the sideboard. It's a zero block. Sorry, it's a 3-block blue. But also amazing, can be played out in amazing spots. Very good against the Rune Blades, especially Viscerai when you're fatiguing. Very good against Lexi, you can brick them and time walk them. Very good against Azalea. Who else is it good against? I think those are the key ones. I think those are the main ones you use it against. Other than that, you block or use it as a blue. Just need to be careful when you're playing it. If you're playing Anaphos, because it doesn't cost 3 or more, it doesn't activate your weapons. Both Anaphos and Titans, you just need to be aware of that. But other than that, it is a fantastic card. There is kind of debate. Some people say they don't get much use out of it. Sometimes you do. I think like it's maybe a bit overrated previously. I think it's kind of come down now. I think the price reflects that. I think it's down like 10 bucks. Down to like, it's about 30 now, 35. I can't remember at the time of this video. I'm not really watching the markets, but I do know that it's not seen as game breaking as it was before, because people started to adapt to it. They started to play around it. Obviously, when it first came out, people had no idea what they were doing and getting caught with it left, right, and center on stream as well. But now I think people are aware of it and kind of playing around it. It's not so potent, but you can still catch people out with it. It is still a good card. It is, still very big, very big impact when it does work well, and it's almost always good against Viscerai. Anaphos, of course, is your other weapon. You run Titan's Fist Buckler into like. I like to run it into the ninjas. There's argument, but I like to have that extra 2-block. I run, or extra 3-block even. I run this into Phi, Katsu, Lexi, Azalea, and basically I think that's it. There might be maybe a couple more, but I run it into those matchups. Anaphos into anything aggressive, and then I'll talk about Rampart's there as well. I'll talk about Rampart in a minute once we get there. So moving to Tunic. Tunic is for Icelander. So I used to run Tectonic Plating AB1 into Icelander, and it was an unwinnable matchup for me. You'd take too much damage from Waning Moon, and I was actually going to come off the deck. I thought, Icelander's too popular. If I can't get a decent Icelander matchup and my Lexi matchup's kind of coin flippy, I'm not going to take this deck. But then I swapped to, because that was what some of the lists, like Sebastian Gondel's list that Colin Berman had one AB, and I spoke to him about it after his game in the top 4, I believe it was. And he did say that he just didn't have space, and he had to make a meta call and focus on building the deck for the field, which he thought was going to be Lexi, which was correct. There wasn't that much Icelander, especially on the top tables. But 1AB, we started to see more popularity from the Icelanders. We saw Rhea Williams. Sorry, is it Ray Adams? Ray Adams, I think it is. Sorry, if I get anyone's name wrong in the video, I do apologize. I'm very bad with names and pronunciation. I think it's Ray Adams, but the player who won 2 Battle Hardens back-to-back on Icelander, once that happened, it was on everyone's radar that Icelander could become more of the field, right? And then at US NATS, we actually saw that Icelander, I believe, was the second most represented hero. So it was something that I had to get right, that I really wanted to get right. So yeah, we swapped to Tunic, put Tunic in the list, and added the gloves for AB2. Another thing is you can run the hood if you prefer to have Creative Fist, which is 3-block, which I can absolutely accept, but I kind of like Crown of Providence's effect, so I decided to take the gloves instead of the hood. 1 less block, 1 less covering up of a breakpoint, but I like the Crown effect on Bravo. So yeah, AB2 and Tunic. When I did that, if the matchup feels a lot better, you're a lot more resistant to a Waning Moon. I think you can even go to AB3. I've not tested it. I just didn't want to have to find the slot. So AB2 was fine. The matchup is still kind of, I don't know, either 50-50 or, slightly leaning to Icelander, maybe 55-60. It's hard to say, but the matchup is a lot better. I started to be good Icelanders when I added Tunic and AB2. So I was very happy with that, with Anaphos. And, you just want to catch them with, Pummels, Rouses, Zealouses. You still need to draw quite well. But Command and Conquer Pummel, very, very good. Basically, anything that destabilizes the Icelander, gets them off there, block free, play, or play Arsenal, block free, then, put, or block 2, put Waning Moon, and then put another card in Arsenal. If you can disrupt their Arsenal, you're winning the game big time. So yeah, you need to watch your health as well. So yeah, so that's what the AB2 is there. Obviously it's there for Kano as well, but Kano's probably one of the worst matchups for Icelander. Sorry, Kano's one of the worst matchups for Bravo. and but it's hardly played. It's a very small percentage of the field, so I didn't really care too much about it. It's kind of a situation where like, okay, there might be 2 Kano at the tournament. It's like 1 or 2% of the field. If I run into it, I just gotta go fast and that's it. So that's kind of where we are with the Kano matchup. Now Rampart is the interesting one because I don't think many people were playing it. Rampart is super interesting. So what Rampart's there for? At first we tried to do it with Lexi, but realized it wasn't really worth it. You know, maybe we use it with Winter's Bite and getting a Frostbite and stuff like that, and just getting 1 block from there. But I don't like it. You know, they got Drill Shot, which they can punish you with, and it just wasn't that effective. But what this is really here for is for the Rune Blades. So I'll go over Viscera. I did have a Viscera game at the tournament, which is on stream, which we'll go over later. But the whole idea is this. At first we used to run 64 cards, but then we cut it down to 61 cards, which is 40 blues, 18 reds, and 3 yellows, I believe. I think there's only 3 yellows in the deck, which is Starstruck. And the idea is you just you pitch for AB. You normally have a lot of a lot of blues for AB. And you run to AB. And the reason why and you fatigue them. So the reason why it was so hard to fatigue before, or why it was unthinkable, is because of Rosetta Thorn, right? Like, how do you cover 2 arcane, 2 physical? It's just really annoying. You're going to leak and eventually it's inevitable. But what you do is you can turn a blue when they throw Rosetta at you. You turn a blue, you go AB2, you run AB2, your boots and your gloves. You AB2 it, floating 1, block with Rampart. So they come in for 4, you block for 3 off a blue, and you only leak 1 physical. And if you're blocking very efficiently and well outside of the game, that's never going to kill you. They would have to do it 40. They would have to do it like 30 times because you have Sigil and you block very, very well into Viscera. So this is fantastic. The reason how I came about using this tech is that my 2 teammates, Zhang, who won the Battle Hard at Birmingham, and Alex, who just won UK NATS, I watched them play a game. I watched them play 2 games, maybe like 2 or 3 weeks before we played NATS. And Zhang was telling me that he'd be able to fatigue Briar, and I just thought, I played against Alex on my brother list. I just thought there's just no way, that's impossible. I didn't believe it would be possible. Then I watched Zhang fatigue Alex twice in a row, and it made Alex change his list. He put in rights of replenishment, and I think he changed a few other things I can't remember off the top of my head. But basically, he changed his whole thought and changed his approach when this happened. Now, not many brothers were running this, and I think Zhang just kind of got it from what old team used to do. But it's very, very, very effective against Briar and Viscera. Now, the problem with Viscera is talking about Viscera quickly is the only way you can kind of lose the game, how I think. Like, if they don't realize, listen, if they realize that you're trying to fatigue, and they come in with, like, you know, Ninth Blade, the one that comes in for 9 and reduced. I think it's called Ninth Blade something. Let me get the card up. Give me 1 second. I'll get the card up just so, because Ninth Blade of the Blood Oath, is this it? Yeah. So this card here, this is like one of the best cards to get around this strategy. Ninth Blade of the Blood Oath. If they're running this card, they will probably be running it in a sideboard. But this was a very big card. This is how they used to beat Oldhim. If they're running this card and they build rune chants, then they like Morve it, coming in for like 18 plus, 9, so like the 9 rune chants this, and then they come in with like some other stuff and they can come in for like 25, 30 damage. If they can do that a couple times, then yeah, you'll lose the game. But again, it's that element of the Lexi at Birmingham where they're not prepared for the fatigue. You know, Viscera is seen as very unfatigable, especially without Oldhim with Crown of Seas, etc. If they're not running this and they just come in and they think they're just going to play against a mid-range Bravo, then they'd like just lose the game on the spot. Like the game that I played at Nats, he revealed Carapace. Well, obviously you want Tunic, and you kind of want the Crown of Dominion as well for the goal to build a big turn. He presented Crown of Providence, which is not, you know, that's nothing. That's no discredit to my opponent. That's the right thing to do, especially if I'm playing the normal build. But then my opponent uses Mordred Tide on turn 0. When my opponent uses Mordred Tide on turn 0 against me, I knew at that point that I'd won the game, purely because it's very hard for Viscera to get damage through unless it's built and set up, and also you get punished for setup. Let's say you just have a turn, you play Read the Runes, and you leave Bravo with 4 or 5 cards, it's very likely you're going to get hit with something big, right? So it's very hard to manage. So yeah, I'm very confident into the Viscera match. Obviously this tactic is weaker the more it's known, but I knew going into Nats that not many Bravos were going to try and do this because it's just uncommon. And when I was testing and playing on Talishar, etc., and with just some of the good European players that I've been testing with, I saw no one doing this. So Yeah, and so the way you lose is if you have 4 reds in hand, and like, let's say they do a Mordred Tide Revel with the Runeblood turn, Revel turn, and you have 4 reds in hand, then yeah, you can get screwed by that. But but if you get to your stack, what the most beautiful thing about this, you can run 61 because a lot of their damage is arcane, so you're able to AB, and it will go to you won't lose a card. They'll use Revel. You'll use like 2 cards to pitch for AB, and they'll go to the bottom of your deck, right? So not only are you cycling quite fast, also you're not losing cards in your deck. So it's very hard for them to fatigue you back. And once you hit your stack, you're safe, because once you hit your pitch stack, it's all blues from all the arcane that you've been arcane barriering. So once you get there, even if they do build a big turn, you know for sure you can block 12 arcane every single turn because you've got 4 blues coming in every single hand. By that point, it's very, very difficult for them to kill you. I've not lost to a Viserai. Since I adopted this strategy, I've not lost to one Viserai, AB2 and Rampart. I don't run Heart of Fyendel because I was running Heart originally, but a lot of the games, you just don't go under their health. You will come in, you'll pitch, and then you'll block out the turn, and then you will hammer back, and they won't block it because they need to keep their cards to get over the fatigue. So you're always normally above their health. I never went under their health, right? I would just hammer for 4, block out, hammer for 4, block out. Old him gameplay, right? So didn't run Heart. Briar's a little bit more difficult because they got Shadowmount Heroic, rights of replenishment and stuff like that. But the whole idea is, I mean, a lot of them don't run rights, but if they Shadowmount Heroic you need to keep like a good crush attack, like a choke slam or a spinal crush in your arsenal, and when they play it, Shadowmount Heroic, you know, their turn when they play Shadowmount Heroic shouldn't be so devastating, but they want to set out for the next turn, they'll put a counter on it. You want to present a choke slam or a spinal crush or something that's gonna, you know, weaken their turn. So you can come in with that. They have to respect it. Maybe they respect it with equipment, maybe they don't. It just depends what they have at the time. Once they respect it, then you have to block out their turn as best as possible and just hope they haven't got a good turn. I think Briar's a lot more it's a lot more inconsistent than the Viserai strategy because of those mountain spike turns. Also, if they do rights replenishment, you just pitch Terra Sunder, and at the end of the game they won't have any armor because you've been playing the game well, and most of the time they'll have to use that armor in a spot to give you more offense. Once that happens, then you can Terra Sunder and try to break the rights loop so they can't actually fuse and use their rights. It's not the most consistent strategy. It does work. You can get wins. The problem is, the alternative to that is to play Anaphos aggressive package. If you do that, I think it's like suicidal into Briar, because once they get their Channel Mount Heroic, they're getting too much value, and you just don't. The way you play your grindy, they will just start to gap you on life. They will start to, once they mount Heroic, they will gap you on life, and you just won't be able to get back into the game. So I felt that the aggro plan was like a non-game into any decent Briar, whilst the fatigue plan, catching people off guard, was my best chance. So that's kind of the deck. I'm just thinking if there's anything that I missed out, any key points. I think that's it, really. Just having a double look. Let me have a look at the matchup, see if there's anything that jogged my memory. I mean, hard matchups. Dash, I'll go over a couple of matchups. Dash is quite a difficult matchup. Great Axe Dory is is almost a non-game. So Great Axe Dory is very hard for you because they play Great Axe, and the games, you know, Bravo games always go long pretty much. 20 turns of getting that Great Axe thrown at you and not be able to block properly is very, you know, very, very nasty. Elsa was one of the worst matchups. I think it got a lot better with Tunic AB. Droma is a very skill-intensive matchup. You want to fatigue Briar, you never see Arachne. Azalea is very, very favoured for you. You just present the fridge, and you present a crap ton of D-Rats and just run them out of pumps. Bolton, you just like never see either. It's like whatever. Fi, I think it's quite skill-intensive. You just need to get them crushed. You need to get the tempo. Don't try and fatigue Fi. Good Fi will never get fatigued. Kano, again, one of the worst matchups, but luckily it's very lowly represented. Katsu, again, kind of similar to Fi, although you can fatigue them a bit better, but you don't want to block fatigue the ninjas. You want to kind of fatigue them by damage. Leviathan, no one was playing it. I mean, it's kind of, I don't even know what to say about this matchup. It can be kind of bad. It can be kind of good. It depends on their blood rushes. This deck kind of just is a kind of a solitaire deck similar to Kano. It just plays by itself. Like, you can lose to itself, it can win to itself. Just a weird deck. Very inconsistent deck. Lexi, a bit coin flippy if you ask me. Mirror, I think the Bravo Mirror is one of the most skill intensive matchups in Fab. It's there is still draw dependency on stuff like Zealous and Rouse, but largely it's a pure arithmetic math game. You know, you can lose or win this game on a couple points of value. When I played against Ilias a bunch of times. He's very good on the Guardians. I played Ultim for a very long time competitively as well. So very, very good. I think finished 10th at Baltimore, I believe, at the Pro Tour. Top 8 calling you to it. So, you know, like a bona fide pro, strong player. And I played the mirror a bunch of times with him, and it just felt like a very close, grindy match every time. There was no blowouts. So yeah, I really enjoyed the mirror. It's one of my favorite things about Bravo, is that the mirror is very skill intensive. Prism is kind of like Dromai, but I think it's a worse deck. No one plays this anyway. Again, no one plays Rhino. Riptide, no one plays it. Azuri is a matchup I'll talk about later on. It's kind of it's interesting because they present two different lists. And it's kind of, I think it's kind of a 50-50 if you ask me. I think one of the appeals to Bravo is that he has no auto wins and not really auto losses. I mean, you know, there are some really bad matchups and there's some good matchups like Azalea and stuff, but I don't think they go, it's definitely not polarized. It's not like Dromai into Ninja or Dromai into, you know, Iceland or into Great Axe Dory, where there's literal auto wins and auto losses. One of the appeals to me on this deck is that a lot of the matchups are very skill based. You have a lot of agency. I will say now, before we go over the games, there was no game that I felt that I had like a lack of agency. There was always decisions I could do. I felt at Birmingham when I was playing Lexi that there was a lot of games that were out of my hand. I feel like that all 6 CC games that I played at this UK NATS, whether it was the bottom or the top tables, I had a lot of agency and a lot of, the games that I lost, I felt like I had lines to win every single one of those games. So I was very impressed with that. Viserai, again, you just fatigued them. I've not lost to it yet. I think this strategy gets worse as people understand what's happening. But when people don't know about the Rampart Tunic AB2 strategy, it's very, very good. Same as Vincent. Vincent's just like a worse Viserai. I mean, they literally IP themselves. This deck's a joke. So, okay, let's move on to the games. So, day one, CC rounds. First game, I played the Mirror. I can't remember who went first or second. I believe I won the, I won the die roll, and I elected my opponent to go first because in testing we just thought that was better. You want to get the tempo early. You risk getting crushed with like a big crushing attack, but I found that, you know, that's not really, it doesn't consistently happen, so it's worth taking that risk to go second. I think I was slightly more disciplined with my with equipment, and I think, I don't really know, like, I think my opponent did have a few Zealouses. He had a Rouse. I think I had one more Rouse turn, and I think that was kind of, you know, enough. I think these two things here, even though it was very, very, very close game, a very grueling game. I think it was like 20 turns, very grindy. It was one of my hardest games of the tournament. I was told before the tournament, you know, by some good players that often they have a bye for the first 3 rounds. This certainly wasn't the case for me. I won this game, but it was very close. It could have gone either way, and it was a very tough game. But yeah, the Mirror, I got a W. Now I played against Lexi. This game was hilarious. So what happened is he had a Rain Razor's turn. I took all the damage. I presented a couple dominated crush cripplings. Opponent had the Rain Razor turn. I crushed him a few times. Then the game got into this spot. This was crazy. So we got into the spot where he had Perch Grapplers, Hornet Sting, and Tunic up, which is a 4-block, and he had his New Horizon as well, but he's never going to block with that unless he's about to die, right? So if I remember correctly, I worked out he had 4-block that he'd be happy to use. Probably wouldn't want to use Tunic, but it was very low. He was on 3 health. And I was on 9 health. And I'll never forget this. So, he was on 3 health and I was on 9 health. I had a Seismic Surge. And my hand was like, I had a blue Macho Grande and Arsenal. I had 3 blues. Did I have 3 blues? I think my hand was like 2 blues and a Starstruck. And a Pummel. So my turn was going to be Macho Grande with the Seismic Surge using the 2 blues, then Pummel. Which comes in for 30, which just comes in for 12, obviously on hit discard. He's on 3 HP. So the only way I think he survives if he has a... I worked out that it was like almost impossible for him to survive if I could keep this hand, right? You'd have to have a trap, which most Lexis aren't running. I think even then it's still kind of rough. Block 4. Even if he blocks with the New Horizon... Yeah, I mean, he basically just dies if I keep this hand. But anyway, this is what happens. He has, let me think about how many cards he had in hand. I don't remember if he had an Arsenal. I think he might have had one in Arsenal. If I remember correctly, he had one card in Arsenal. No, that's a lie. He had 4 cards in hand. He had 4 cards in hand. I had 9 health. I remember this. He pitches a blue. Loads Falcon Wing with +1 for 4. Throws it at me. Okay, I have 5 block on my armor. I don't remember exactly what pieces, but I had 5 total block, okay? And I had 9 health, so just bear with me here. I know that if I keep my hand in Arsenal, he dies for sure, next turn. So, he loads, throws the Falcon Wing for 4, has 2 pitch and 2 cards in hand. I think about it for a second, I say take 4, or I say like, you know, move to reaction, doesn't use any reactions, I take 4, I'm down to 5 health, okay? He then uses his second Voltaire to load a Remorseless with +1. He is now floating 0 resources, and he has 1 card in hand. And that is it. And he's firing Remorseless at me. So I look at it and I think, okay, so I can block this out with my 5 equipment. And I take 1. Because I'm at 5 health now, right? Because of the Falcon Wing. So I want to kill him before I finish this. So I want to kill him next turn, and I don't want to block and trade with him because he's playing Lexi. We're both low health. If I just block this and throw Hammer back, or I just throw Macho, he just gives me equipment, then he gets full tempo, and I'm low health. So it's do or die. Basically, I don't want to be in a situation where he has any tempo with Lexi when we're both very low health. So I realize I'm just going to go with this line. So he's throwing this Remorse at me for 6 of 1 card in hand. And I'm looking at this. This is like turn 5 or turn 4 of the game. It was quite a quick game. I'm looking at this and I say, if I block 5 of my equipment, because he's got no go again, he's got no snaps, he's got perch grapplers. If I block 5 of my equipment, he hits me for 1, I go to 4. I then throw Macho Grande at him, going down to 3 because of Remorseless, and then I pummel him and he dies. I looked at it, and I was sitting there on this Remorseless for 6 for a long time, working out, you know, what could he have to beat me. I thought, if he has Rain Razors, he would have used it on Falcon Wing. Unless he's holding it for like a tricky play, but I just don't think he would do that. I don't think that's correct to hold it to try and trick me here. Because then what happens there is he Rain Razors me. I go down to 2 health. I throw Macho. I go down to 1 and he Hornet Stings and I die. Okay, or I Hornet Sting and there's a chance that I die. So I don't think it's Rain Razors he'll do here. So I looked at every single other card. I was thinking about, could it be Razor Reflex? No, he has no resources and it's not even a sword or whatever. So I worked it out that the only card that I would lose to here, the only card that would put me in serious trouble is Lightning Press. And I sat there and I thought to what my old buddy, my teammate Shamir says, and it says, because I used to play around stuff a lot when I first started the game, which is bad because, you know, you mess up your value, and it's just a situation where if he has it, he has it. So I looked at it and I thought, the only way is Lightning Press. I looked at his graveyard, there was no Lightning Presses there. I also know that not every Lexi runs Lightning Press. It's a flex piece. People do not run it. Some people run it, some people don't. I just said, like, okay, if he has it, he has it. And I remember blocking 5, and I remember thinking in my head, I blocked 5, moved 3 actions. I remember thinking in my head, just let me take 1 and put that card in Arsenal, and this game's over. Like, I never said this to him, but I think in my head, like, if he just lets this go and Arsenal's, it's all Gucci. And as soon as he went to reactions, and he's got the card in his hand like this, and he starts to put the card down, I knew from the moment his hand started doing this. As soon as he had something, I knew he was going to reveal Lightning Press. Boom, there's a Rainbow 4 Lightning Press. I was like, bro, I remember taking my hat off my glasses and wiping my brow and being like, my lord, this son of a gun actually had it. He hits me with it. I go down to 1. We go to next turn. I present Hammer because Hammer doesn't trigger Remorseless. I'm on 1 health. I'm going to use Pummel. He's thinking about it. Not only does he cover the Pummel so it wouldn't have killed him, he blocks like 6. And it would have come in for 8. He lost with Hornet Sting reveals now and I die. So I lose this game. I lost this game to a blowout. He was running on 4 cards hands on Lexi. I got blown out here by the Lightning Press. Got juiced. Very close game though. I was very happy with it. And yeah, so I'm 1-1 now. Then I play against Katsu. This was against Ashkan. I believe it's Ashkan. I think it's Ashkan Rashid Sunati, I want to say. If I said that wrong, I do apologize. But it's Ashkan, and the reason why I know this player, the reason why I know who this is because I recognized him from Birmingham. He finished in the top 8. There was 2 Katsu in the top 8 of Burn. Another guy was Ralph Solari, who's a Swiss player, and Ashkad, who's a UK player. I remember running into him, and I think I got paired up, because I believe he was 2-0 at this point. I think I got paired up, and I remember him making that comment that I did get paired up, so I think I did. Anyway, we played this. I can't remember who started first or second, but I remember saying this is a good play. You know, you don't top 8 a call-in with like 450 players. You don't top 8 without being good at the game and knowing your stuff, right? Knowing your value, knowing your matchup. So I knew this was going to be a formidable opponent. And I also said to myself, because I was kind of doubting myself after the Lexi game, because I had a bad call in Birmingham, and I'm kind of an armory grinder. So I thought, like, you know, I had quite a rough, not a rough, but not a top cutting, you know, I didn't have a top cutting level performance at Cornwall. I didn't even make day 2. So I lost to Lexi, and I remember I was doubting myself. I remember thinking, like, man, am I even good enough to be here? Like, is this a real thing? So I remember starting the game against him, and I was just high rolling, and he was low rolling. This was insane. So I just, like, I was crushing him every turn. Crushing every turn. It was stuff like crippling into Starstruck. I think I had a couple off turns, and he presented some damage, but nothing crazy. Then I pivoted back, and I remember drawing the last crippling. I don't think I killed him with crippling, or maybe I did, I can't remember. But I remember drawing it and thinking in my head, oh my god, I'm so sorry, this is insane. So I crushed him every turn, and I asked him, and also I asked him if he had any D-Reacts in his deck, because not one time did he present, like there was one time where he took a crush, and he kept his arsenal there, and then he got, I knew that he'd get crushed again, right? Because if he's not D-Reacted at this point, then I know that he's not going to D-React next time, because it would make no sense not to D-React a crippling or a Starstruck. So I crushed him twice back to back, or no, not back to back, but like twice on the same Arsenal card. And not one time, I think he was running 3 sinks and 3 flicks. I asked him after the game, because I was like, this is a good player. There's no way he would not be running D-Reacts into me. It's Katsu, right? You have to. He was running 6 D-Reacts. This game went like 40 minutes, and we played quite a few turns, and he never saw them. So he got very, very unlucky. A very low rolly game for him, and a very high rolly game for me. And I won this game. Had 17 health at the end of the game. I remember that number, because I remember being like, wow, I got a win over a very good player. I think he was also the most elo that I got on the weekend. I think he had like 1700. So yeah, good player, really nice guy as well. Because after that, he recognized me from Runaways Discord. I drafted a lot in the Runaways Discord, right? And we spoke a little bit. And after that, when we went into the draft, he was passing to me. I was sitting on his left, so I spent quite a bit of time with him and was talking, you know, the usual stuff. But yeah, I was very happy to get this win, even though it was a high roll and he low rolled. I was very, very happy to get this win over you know, a good player, a player that I know was very good. So I finished the CC rounds 2 wins, 1 loss. And I was happy with that. I wanted to 3-0. Of course you want the 3-0, but I knew 2-1 was still good. My pod was I still get into a decent level pod, and I was still live for top 8. I know that my draft's a lot stronger than my CC. It just is. I spend a lot more time on draft, so I was very happy going into the draft. Okay, so here we go. Draft 1, Prism. So I just a little bit of a backstory when it comes to drafting. Especially leading up to this Nats, I was very confident that there wasn't a person in that room that had drafted more than me. I think I must have done... It's really hard to count. I can't actually count all the decks. I didn't export all the decks. And some of the drafts, admittedly, I did drop, or I wasn't able to play because my opponent dropped. A few of them here or there. But if I had to guess, overall, I did probably about 15 paper drafts at the shop, and just with buds. And I think on Runaways Discord for drafting, I must have done... In total with paper drafts, it's got to be around 75, 80. It's somewhere between, I reckon it's somewhere between 70 and 100 Monarch drafts that I did. I can't give you the exact number, but I did a lot of drafts, and I was confident that it was very unlikely that there was someone else in that room that did more than me, and I was very confident going into draft. I love draft, and I knew that my drafting strategy was good, and I knew that I had a good chance to 5-1 or 6-0 the pods. It's still draft, it's still Monarch draft, there's still a lot of high variance. For sure, there's a lot of bombs, you know, there's Luminaris, Dread Scythe, all that kind of nonsense, and, you know, Veer of the Vanguard, these big power cards. But I knew that my strategy was consistent. I knew the play patterns. I knew what I needed to draft. I knew the value of the cards. I knew it off by heart. I knew the pack distribution, the collation, everything, right? I knew if I was playing Prism, if I was playing Chain, or whoever I was playing, and I saw a hero, I knew exactly what I needed to do, and you know what the limits were. So I was very confident. The hero split was 2, 2, 2, 2. We had 2 of each. This is the deck. The deck that I played was this deck here. So to give you a little bit of the draft, I remember this. So I was sitting next to Ashcan. My pick one, pack one, I believe was Rally the Rearguard, generic 6 popper. Then he passed me a pack where the illusionist, I can't remember what was taken, but no illusionist cards was taken, and I believe one of the red heralds was in that pack. I think, gotta give me a moment, it was a little while ago now. I don't remember exactly. I think it was a red herald of tenacity, or it might have been Ravagers. I don't remember which one it was, but I saw a red herald and I said, okay, let me go, I'm not gonna lock in, but let me go towards Prism. He kept on passing me Prism Heat. I think he then passed me a red Spears, and I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna go from Prism. He ended up being Levia. I was passing to Sean Nolden on the left. Another good player. I think he went into the tournament. This is pod 4, by the way. We're pod 4. I was seat 3. Sean went into the tournament with like 5th limited elo in the country. I believe he was top 50 global as well. And also coming out that tournament, he's now number 1 limited elo in the country. 17 global, if I remember correctly. He made a tweet. I'm just trying to think about it, but yeah. So passing to him. So it was quite, to be honest, for being at pod 4, it was quite a stacked pod. We also had Jacob Clements in that pod, who finished top 8 UK Nats last year. And if I remember correctly, also had a winning in for calling Antwerp on Oldham. I don't know about his other accolades at this moment. I can't remember, but very good player as well. So it was kind of a death pod for where we were. For pod 4, it was very stacked. And yeah, so he's passing me that heat. At pick 7 or so, I pass a Genesis. Or I think it's about pick 7 or pick 8. I don't remember. It might have been, I don't know. It was later on in the pack, in the middle of the pack. I later spoke to Sean after the pod, because he played Prism as well. He was the other Prism, with that 2-2-2 split. And Sean I was passing to was the other Prism. And me passing the Genesis put him onto Prism, which is fair enough. I don't like auras in draft. I don't like auras. They're expensive. They cost 4. And they don't block. And, you know, there's a lot of strategies, there's a lot of game plans and a lot of matchups, especially into the Shadow Heroes, where Prism needs to be able to block. So I decided not to take Genesis. I mean, if you're going to take any aura, though, Genesis is probably the best one. I mean, it gives you a shield and it lets you draw and stuff if it's allowed to, you know. Basically, has to be respected. So I can understand that. And it also means that, I think also the fact that Sean saw Genesis that late in the pack means that if there was a lot of Prisms that would have been taken, someone would have definitely taken it. So it also indicates that it's quite open. He was correct, right? Because I was the only Prism at the table at that point, and he became the second Prism. So if you look at it like that, it was very correct that he made that decision. So anyway, I draft quite good deck. I didn't put all the cards. Obviously, you know, there's only 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37. You get 45 cards. I believe the other 8 cards would probably be unplayables. You know, the last couple cards you get in a pack that are like blue memorial ground or something stupid like that, or like shadow card stuff that you can't play as class. So I didn't even have the cards because I threw them in a bid at the venue after I finished the draft. So I didn't, you know, look suspicious in the second draft. Anything that I didn't sleeve up, basically. So yeah, so we're missing those cards. But this is what I played. I played 32 main board, and I played. This is my shadow package. So I'd run Blinding Beams and Impenetrable Belief into Levia and Chain. This card here being like super underrated, by the way. I'll talk about this a little bit later in my second draft. It was quite poignant and important, but this is a very underrated card because I think Prism into, especially Chain, wants to block out and try to fatigue almost every single time, because you just can't race that deck. So there we are. I mean, breaking down the deck, I mean, if you look at the amount of free blocks, there's 32 cards. 1, 2, 3, 4. You have 32 cards, and you have 3 cards that block 2 and a card that doesn't block at all, which is completely incredible. That's insane, right? Like, the consistency of blocking is amazing. Very, very hard to kill me if you're on Chain. Prismatic Shield was absolutely goated. You know, turn 1, regardless if you're going first or second, this card is nuts. If you're going second, it's absolutely unbelievable, because if you see, there's quite a few blues. How many blues do we have on this? 12 blues out of 32 is pretty nice. So there was a common pattern of like playing Prismatic Shield, and then you know, you go to turn 2, you play it when they can't do anything on turn 1. Turn 2, attack with 3 of them with blues for 12 without losing cards is completely insane. So that's like a blowout play. Heralds, I mean, 3 red. I got past this really late, and I was like, oh my god, this is an amazing card. Herald of Triumph is insane because there's only a certain amount of cards that can actually pop this in the format because of this -1. I think off the top of my head, Red Graveling Growl, Red Lunatine Plunderer, and I think Celestial Cataclysm. There might be another one that I'm forgetting, but it's neither here or there. This is very hard to pop, right? There's very few cards that can pop it, so it's amazing. Red Heralds are significantly better than Yellow Heralds because there's breakpoint right here. If you don't want it to hit, for 7, you've got to give 3 cards or 2 cards on equipment. And if it does hit, it goes to soul, and then you can get a shield. And there's a lot of situations where the mirror, chain not so much because it has arcane damage, but mirror, Bolton's, probably the second most resistant after chain, but it's still annoying. But definitely Levia and the mirror, having a shield is insane. You can literally just sit behind it. So, few red heralds here. We got 3 red heralds, a War Tune herald as well, I guess, 4. 2 red spears. This is like the most insane card ever. Lets you do some silly stuff. You can come in with like 2 spears and a War. I mean, look at this play. Let's say I have a 4-card hand. I have a blue, and I have 2 red spears and a War Tune herald in my hand. You're talking about a 4-card 17, which is poppers are quite rare in the format. You sometimes you can literally draft and never see a popper. You can never even have the choice to pick a popper. So when you got a 4-card 17, you got 20 health. I mean, it's just a blowout. So yeah, Surgeon, just a good generic, very, very annoying to deal with, especially later on. Warmonger's Recital, very good as well. Good for fatigue, +3. Prism doesn't have a lot of go again. So Warmonger's Recital is very good if you've got tempo to allow you to use your hand. With Surgeon Militia, I mean 8, and every block gives you 1 is insane. Popper obviously, and then just a bunch of good free blocks and stuff like that. So yeah, this is a very nice deck. Halo of Illumination, of course, fantastic as well. It should get a shield early. Spell Void is underrated as well for fatigue and chain. Dreamweaver's incredible as well, very high priority. Normally I would throw this, like if I was to, I would save it when I'm buffing. So if I Warmonger's Recital, a Red Herald into 10, or a Tenacity for 9 Dominate, that's where I'd save my Dreamweavers. Anyway, let's move on to the games. Game 1, played against Bolton. This is against Jacob Clements. He said something before the game where he was like, "Oh, so if it's a 2-2-2 split, Prism should win," because I agree with that. Prism is the best deck if everything is equally drafted in a 2-2-2-2 split. It just is. It's just a better deck. He said that, and it proved to be correct. I did win the game. I just presented a lot of. I think I had a shield up for a bit of the game. Attacked with the shield, attacked with big heralds, hard for him to deal with. He played as well as you could with the deck he had. He just had like an average Bolton deck. Average Bolton deck is quite bad. He did have a scary turn at one time where he used Plow Through and Gallantry Gold, attack me with the axe, then give it go again, then second swing from Arsenal, and then swing the next axe. I did luckily have my 3 shields up from Prismatic Shield, which helped me on that turn, but that was a scary turn. He played as well as you could, very tight, but I just had the better deck, so I ended up winning. Then I played another Bolton. This game was interesting because I think he presented like 37 cards. I remember I started second, and if I remember correctly, I made 4 shields. So I used my Halo of Illumination, and I used Prismatic Shield to make 4 shields going into turn 2. And believe it or not, I went into turn 2 of 4 shields, and I drew 4 reds. And I remember being like, oh my lord. I remember thinking like, this is ridiculous. I have 4 shields here. Give me 4 blues. This game like ends on the spot. I come in for 16. 4 cards, 16 without even spending any cards. And I win on the spot. But I drew 4 reds with 4 shields. So the game got a bit grindy. He got to the end. He started to play almost like I owed him. He started to like block out. When he realized I was running low on threats, he was running low on health. But he started to like block out and just present 1 axe. And I think I got down to 6 cards, and I presented a turn that was like Spears. I think it was Spears, Surgeon Militia, or Spears, War Tune Herald, something like that. And eventually I pushed enough damage to get over his blocks and kill him. But it was a very close game. And then I played against Prism, which was Sean Nolden. I believe this is how you spell the name. Again, if not, I do apologize. It might even be this. Let me see. No, I think it's this. So, played against Sean. He was actually winning the game for most of the game because he had like I made Prismatic Shield. I remember I made Prismatic Shield early and I thought, yes, this is over, I got him. But he presented a really nice turn that was like, I think he used Time Skippers or something, and he presented a War Tune Herald where I had to lose all my shields. I couldn't block it. I remember calculating like if it was a yellow or a blue, not likely to be a blue, could be yellow, then I'm fine, but it was a red, so he actually got all my shields off me. Then we was playing to the end game. It got to a point where I had like 1 health and he had like 4, and I was like, oh, I'm dead, I'm doomed, because he's got a shield up. But what ended up happening, and I had a feeling this could happen, I was conscious of this during the game, We got to second cycle. We both had like no cards left, but I had more free blocks in my deck. I had, as I said, 28 free blocks, I believe. And I knew that he would have a lack of free blocks because I was passing to him and he committed to Prism later. So I knew that my deck overall, from bottom to top, was more solid than his deck. He did have the Genesis, which I had to clear early. But I knew that my deck would block better. And that's exactly what happened. I turned the tide right at the end of the game when he was about to beat me. I turned the tide. I was able to get 2 shields on board. I stripped his hand, and then before the game ended, I had like a few cards in deck. He had a few cards in deck. He realized that he was going to die because I had him locked down by the shields. And he gave me the fist bump and I won this game. So... close game, very close game. Sean's a great player, really is. I was very, very happy to get the win. I felt like I was very lucky as well, but I knew my deck was going to be slightly better. So this is a 3-0. So I was 5-1. I was 5-1, and I remember being, I was like, yes, this is amazing. I'm 5-1. I'm super live now, right? 5-1, 2-1. And I was very, very happy with that. So that was it really on that draft. Moving straight briefly onto the swiftly onto the draft 2. Again, I picked Prism, and I will say now that I was not forcing Prism. I'm actually going to do a video after this one. I don't know if it will come out the same day or the next day, but I will do it quite quickly afterwards, explaining my strategies for Monarch draft and how I came to those conclusions and what I learned from doing so many drafts, and I'll explain what happened here. But the reason why I ended up on Prism is because I started out drafting Levia cards. I got a Levia pack. I got a pack that I was very happy to take a Levia card and start hedging towards that. I picked up a couple cards. So I went up to pod 2. And I was sitting next to Osama McDonald. Osama McDonald is the player, is the Lexi here. This is Osama McDonald, right? Osama McDonald, who beat me in the thing. I was sitting next to him. He was passing to me. I was passing to Andrew Rayner. Next to Andrew Rayner, there was a player, I can't remember who it was. Oh, no, I do, yeah. And sitting next to Andrew Rayner was Nathan Hills, who top 8'd that tournament on Axe Story. Then there was a player to his left that I don't remember the player's name. After that, it was Dan Collette. Then going round the table, it was Liam Holden, into Sharif Shaban, and then into Osama McDonald. So that's the 8, right? So I was taking Levia cards. I got past some Levia cards early. And I was like, I was very nicely into Levia, picking Levia because I think I took like a Lunar Tide Plunderer, and then all of a sudden, it dried up very hard. Okay, I got a pack that had no Levia cards, and I was like, oh, I took a Prism card. Then I saw more Levia cards. I think it was a Soul Harvest. I was like, oh, let me take a Soul Harvest. This is a very good card. It's a blue 6, beautiful card. And then again, it dried up. So I was like, what the hell is going on? So then I went back to Prism. There was more Prism cards. I committed to Prism. When I got to pack 2, there was like hardly any Prism cards. And I was like, oh, pack 3 will be fine. Pack 3, there was like hardly any Prism cards. So what happened, basically, is both Sharif and Liam were both on Levia. And they were sitting 2 seats to the right of me. So you had Osama. Osama was sitting next to me on the right. He was on Bolton. And then there was 2 guys on the right of that. Sharif and Liam respectively, they were both on Levia. Okay, so that's why I was getting cut very heavily on Levia. I could never go Levia. But then somehow, Andrew, who was sitting on the left of me, was on Prism. Then Nathan was on Chain, and then the 2 boys on the right, on the left of him, were on Prism. So we had 4 Prism. I couldn't believe it. 4 Prism, 2 Levia, 1 Bolton, and 1 Chain. I was like, oh my god, how has this happened? I looked at my deck. I'll show you what my deck was. I looked at my deck and I was like, this is the deck here. I was like, oh my god, I had a 5-1. I was X and 1 in pod 2, and I've just partnered it. I've done it. All that draft work, everything that I had done up until that point, I was like, I couldn't believe it. How did I end up with this deck? Like, it's atrocious. It lacks reds. I mean, look at the stats on this. 9 blues, 14 yellows, 7 reds. Okay, and one of those reds is impenetrable beef. One is adrenaline rush. So I thought I was doomed. I couldn't believe it. I was already tilted. I wasn't like mega tilted, but I was very aware that I felt that I was going to crash out here. I was like getting ready for PTI event and everything. I was like, oh my god, like this is going to be an 0-3 deck. So the deck, and the reason why as well, because I played a lot of Prism in testing for this tournament, and when you had a lot of yellow cards, it felt really bad because as I was saying earlier, the six, you just block 2 and you just lose the value game. So looking back at the deck, it's not as bad as I thought it was at the time. I have 2 red Herald's Tenacities, which obviously proved to be quite good. 1 yellow, but these are amazing. I had to run these main board. Like obviously again, I didn't fill out all the deck, but I mean like the other 10 cards, whatever they were like unplayable cards. I mean some of them were Shadow Brute obviously because I was Levi at the beginning, so I don't put these up here. But these Impenetrable Beliefs, I got given them. I think they're wonderful. I got 4 of them. I knew that if I saw the chain, I was very happy because these are very, very good into chain. They block for 4. They're basically sync belows. So amazing. Pound for pound red, got a popper. That's good. 1 red spears, 1 stone ones, so 2 poppers. A lot of yellow garbage though, like you know, Seek Enlightenment yellow. I don't really care for this. I had to run like some garbage blues, out muscle. Block 2 blues are terrible. So I was lacking blues as well. Let me see again. 9 blues. It's not too bad. A lot of yellows. So yeah, I was very unhappy with this deck, and I thought I was doomed. But it just so happens to be that when there's 4 Prism, this was not the worst Prism deck. So I played against Prism. Surprise, surprise. This was against Prism, and I spoke to the player afterwards. They didn't even sleeve the deck. They had 5 cracked baubles. 5 cracked baubles, and they had pivoted into Prism from chain. They had a good chain starter. They're like Shadow of a Sir, but obviously they were getting cut by Nathan, who was 2 seats down, and decided to go Prism at the end of pack 1. Obviously that was a fatal mistake. So they had 5 baubles. Obviously with 5 baubles, I can just put a W straight away. 5 baubles. His deck was non-functioning basically, and I realized at that time that like, you know, my deck is bad, but it wasn't the worst deck at the table, and I couldn't believe this. I couldn't believe the deck that he presented. So I was like, oh, okay, well I guess my deck isn't that bad. Got the win. Then I played against Chain. This was Nathan Hills, who top 8'd the tournament. He was the only Chain at the table, and I knew that I could be in trouble. I could be in trouble because his deck is likely to be very strong. So I remember, this is really funny. So I remember at the beginning of the game, I was taking a little bit of time, and I said to him, I'm just thinking how many cards I'm going to board. Like, how many cards am I going to present? When I said that, he said, how many cards you presenting? When I was shuffling, I said, I'm not going to tell you yet, which is correct, because we hadn't, I don't think at that point we even decided who went first or second, or presented our cards. So you're not need to tell, you're not supposed to tell your opponent how much cards you're presenting until, you know, you've finished, you're presenting, boarding your deck and presenting it and deciding who goes first or second. So those decisions can't be influenced by me telling him the cards. So I said that, he said, yeah, that's fine, absolutely. I think he was just like keen to understand if I was going to try and fatigue him. So anyway, so I do that, I present it, and I say that I'm presenting, I believe I presented 30. So I had these on the sideboard. I was thinking about taking these overloads. Oh, by the way, I didn't mention the Ironhide. These are pretty good. I did pick up these, and I was pretty happy about that. Because 2 Ironhides are very nice. So I did, but for 4 or for yellow. So I was happy with that. But I was thinking to present these overloads, because I knew that I was going in to try and fatigue them. There is no way on this green earth that I was going to be able to race a solo chain as 4 prisms. It just wasn't going to happen. My deck didn't have the heat for it. Sometimes you can do it if you have like, you know, like amazing amount of spears and you draw well, or like amazing amount of like Warmonger's Recital, stuff like that, Seek Enlightenments, reds. You can do it. I've killed James before they've been able to pressure me. But I knew for sure this deck couldn't do it. But then I was deciding, like, should I bring these 2 overloads in just for 2 extra 2 blocks? Because I've had games before where I presented 30 to chain, and then if I lost the game, and if I had 2 more cards, I would have won the game. So this was very close. But at the same time, it can clunk you, because if he comes in with some big like on hits and stuff, like if he throws Galaxy Black for free and I've got one of these in my hand, it's terrible, right? So there is a trade-off there. And I remember thinking halfway through the game, is this going to be the decider? Am I going to lose this game? And if I brought these in, I would have won the game. That would have been devastating. So that was a very conscious thing. But I did present 30. He presented, I believe, 37 or 35. I can't remember, a lot. Anyway, so this game went very weird. He started, I put him on the play. He started and he just like threw Galaxy at me or something like that. I can't remember. But he didn't make a shackle, which was very interesting because he didn't have Dread Scythe. He had Galaxy, and I think he was very conscious that I could fatigue him. So the first couple turns, he didn't present a shackle. Every time he did that, I punished him by throwing some really big heat. I was lucky. I drew what I had. I drew like Stony Warthog, my Spears of Serality, my Herald of Tenacity. I was able to pressure him. And after a couple turns, he presented a very weak damage to me. He was trying to almost fatigue me. He realized it probably wasn't a good idea. Even though when I look back at it, I think it probably could have worked. It's just that I got lucky and drew my pressure hands early, so it kind of like probably scared him a little bit. It was like, oh my god, this is a bit dangerous. But if I had drawn my garbage, like frontline scouts or something, and not been able to do that, I think he would have committed to it and probably won the game. But anyway, he got to a point where he realized like this is not a winning line, and he made a shackle. As soon as he made a shackle, I started to turtle up like crazy. Okay, I started to turtle up like crazy, and I started to turtle up like crazy, and the game got very close. I just started to block out, block out, block out. I think he could have used stubbies a bit better. I think he used stubby. I think there was a play where I thought like if he made stubbies, I'd have been in trouble. I think he got like 2 value out of stubbies, and I think there was a play where he could have got 3 or 4. I can't remember exactly. I could be wrong, but that's what I remember. I remember thinking. And we got to the end of the game. We both had like no cards left and no health. And I killed him. I made a shield and I tapped with a shield and he had 1 card left in hand. I had like 3 cards in deck, 2 in my hand and 1 in the deck. And I had like 1. I think I had 1 health and I was scared of like invert existence. I couldn't play around it. I had a very low amount of health and he had a very low amount of health. It was a very, very close game. But I was able to fatigue. I was basically able to fatigue by damage. I mean, he basically died, but he was going to fatigue as well. So it was like fatigue by damage. And I was very, very proud of this game. Because at this point, I remember thinking, with this deck, if I get a 2-1, it'll be a robbery. I'm expecting a 1-2 or a 0-3 drop. Or like, just I'm going to get out of here. When I won this game against Nathan, I played Nathan previously in the Battle Hardened at Birmingham. It was Blitz, but you know I knew he was a good player. And I just remember thinking, if I get a 2-0, it'll be a result. And I got a 2-0 here, and I remember thinking I'm still live. Oh my god, I'm 6-1 now. Am I 6-1? No wait, hold on. No, sorry, I'm 7-1. I'm 7-1, and I was like, oh my god, I'm 7-1 with this deck. How have I done this? And I really felt that my reps into the draft really paid off here. Repping draft, because I knew exactly, even though my deck was significantly worse than his, because obviously I was just 4 Prism, I knew exactly what I needed to do to win the game, because I had played this matchup so many times before, and I think that experience really paid off here, and I got the win because of that. If I didn't practice draft, there's no way I would have ever won this game. I think the impenetrable beliefs, and also my Ironhide, because I had like 1 health, won me the game as well, and I just did the best of a bad situation. So I was 2-1, and sorry 2-0, and I was like, this is amazing. So then I run into Osama McDonald again. He's the solo Bolton. And this is a hilarious game. I think Osama didn't play much draft, and like he was like reading his cards. I remember people talking about it. He was talking to Andrew as well, and like asking Andrew what like what his cards did and stuff like that. So between rounds, so I knew that he was quite inexperienced, especially on Bolton, and I thought I might be able to get him because of that. But the deck, this guy's deck was absurd. He had 6 take flights, because he was staying in my hotel, so I looked at him after. 6 take flights, and let me think about this. 6 take flights. He didn't have any equipment. I don't think he had gallantry, but he had 6 take flights, 1 Luminous Ascension, and 1 View of the Vanguard versus my Prism deck. So I actually got him down quite low. We got to 1 health each, and there was a period of time in the game, unbelievably, there was a period in the game where I had life advantage. And I had tempo, I had a shield on board. But how much blocks do I have? 2.6. When this happened, when I had that shield, he presented like Warmonger's Recital, Bolt of Courage, I think it was. And it was coming in for 8. And I looked at my hand, and every single card I had in my hand blocked for 2. If I had like a hand that blocked for 3 there, I believe I win this game. So at that time, he kills me in the end with a red Courageous Still Hand. But I just remember thinking there was a time in the game where I had the win in the bag. I just need to draw 3 blocks. But I drew 4 2 blocks. If I drew like 3, I think even 3 3 blocks, not necessarily 4, but 3 3 blocks, block with my hand, block with the 3 blocks, come back with the shield for 4, and he has to give me 2 cards because he's on 1 HP and no armor, and we go from there, and I just win the game. But that's not how it went down. He broke my shield, and he was able to present an axe early, and I went down to 5 health, and he had full tempo and killed me. So that's what happened in that game. I lost this game. But I was very proud of my performance in the draft. 5-1 total. And with this prism garbage as well. So I got a 2-1 here. And I finished the day. Oh, what's going on here? Sorry, 2-1. I finished the day on 7-2. I was like 3rd place overall, I think. 3rd place going into day 2. I've been very, very happy, very stonked. And I only lost to 1 man on this day. So I lost to Osama McDonald in the CC, and I lost to him in my last draft game, which I thought was very funny. I mean, the odds of this are crazy to only lose to one man. He just had my number he really did just have my number that week, and I remember joking with him afterwards. I just could not beat this man. He just had my number. So I'm trying to find my souvenir that I took from because after NATS had ended, because I have a souvenir from each tournament I go to. I like to keep one thing just as like a memory, I guess. For example, from Calling Birmingham, I have my sleeved ponder. This is my sleeved ponder. Let me see if I can get that bigger. This is my sleeved ponder that Maximilian Klein, who top 8'd Baltimore. I played him in the second round of Calling Birmingham, and he gave me this custom ponder, which is my memory from that tournament. So that's my one for that. I'm very happy with this. I'm going to keep this. And Osama McDonald gave me, I can't find it right now. I'm trying to find it. I think I might have put it in my folder. I don't really need to show you guys anyway. I can just tell you what it is. It's a Herald of Erudition. A Herald of Erudition that he hate drafted from me because he was sitting on the right of me when he had that Bolton deck. Because obviously he had all the Bolton juice. He hate drafted the Herald Edition and he gave it to me after the tournament. So that's one that I'm keeping. That's my kind of my memorable piece, my souvenir from this tournament. Because Osama was a big part of my weekend then, and a really, really good guy. A really great guy. I spoke to him a lot in between rounds and after the tournament and stuff when we was watching the top 8 or whatever. And yeah, just a good lad. And happy, I couldn't wish to lose to anyone else. You know, very happy. I much rather lose to great peeps than like your sharky kind of spike players. So can't be too upset with that. 7-2, and we go into day 2. Okay, so day 2. This is very interesting. This was against Viserai. He was ranked 11 at the time. I remember we were looking after day 2. Sorry, after day 1 finished, we was looking at who we could possibly play because me and my teammate Alex, I believe he was 7-2 and 5th, and I was 7-2 and 3rd, if I remember correctly, or vice versa. Maybe I was 5th. I don't remember, but we was both in the top 8, live for top 8 with 7-2. We were sitting down in the hotel looking at who we could play, and Viserai was one that I really wanted to see. This is Damon Elgi, and this is on stream. This is a streamed game. So if you watch Nats, this is the game was on stream. So we sat down and we presented equipment, and as soon as I saw Crown of Providence Diadic Carapace, I knew that he didn't know what was going to happen. I presented my Rampart Tunic, as I discussed earlier, and he played on turn 0. He played Mordred Tide. He said, I may as well just go for this. Played that, not realizing that I was on fatigue. And obviously that was a big mistake. Then the game just kind of became, I was blocking, getting damage through. I started to life gap him quite hard. And then I realized we had time pressure. I took too long at the beginning. We took like 7 minutes prepping and stuff. I was looking at his deck and counting it and stuff, and just a bit too lax. I was a bit too lax with it. And he was a bit slow at times. He's playing Viserai. I played Viserai, and Viserai can be a very, very hard hero to play. The lines aren't, so simple. I understand that. I did have to, say, I'm gonna have to say, what did I say? You're gonna have to make an action or something. Like when you have to say to your opponent, like, we're not gonna finish the game or something. But obviously not in a rude way. I said like, I'm gonna have to ask you to take an action or something like that. I do that like after like maybe a minute or two, especially if I'm on. No, after about a minute. Ilias told me to do this after about a minute because otherwise you just go to time. I had to do that one time. There's a few other times I was going to do it to him, but he just played the action as it came up to like 50 seconds a minute. But even with that, we came very, very close to time. It got to the point where there was like 2 minutes left on the clock. I didn't really know. I knew that we were short of time. I didn't realize it was 2 minutes until I checked the stream afterwards. And I eventually killed him with like Terra Under Spinal Crush. I was able to kill him, but he was just unprepared for fatigue, and I was very comfortable. It was one of the most comfortable games of the weekend for me. Because obviously the Bravo fatigue strategy is very cheeky, and if you're not prepared for it, it's very problematic. So I won this. I just like I was going to fatigue him, but we didn't have any time, so I ended up trying to kill him. I got it done. Very close to going to time though. So at this point I was 8-1, and we knew from calculations that one more win and I would be locked. So I was over the moon at this point, guys. I was like, oh my god, like this is my first Nats, the first time I've done tier 3 drafting, and it's gone very, very well. Then I wanted to draw my Jamie Faulkner. Okay. This is the game I'm probably going to talk the most about on this video. We're already come up to an hour 15, so I apologize for dragging it out. I'm just getting all my thoughts out. So what happened here? So Jamie, this is interesting. The only reason I played Jamie here is because he had a match lost the last game for a deck list error. Something happened with, like, I think he added 2 cards and lost in thoughts and just didn't write it down. He got a complete match loss against Harrison Shaw Dekatsu, who he ended up beating in the top 8. So this game, let's think about this. So just to give you a little backlog on this, right? Jamie's a very known player. He's kind of known internationally and definitely known very locally. He's very, very good. He's definitely one of the best drawmeyers in the world. There's no doubt about it. I knew this. I had known this because for me, when I first entered this game, I do my due diligence. I research all the players. I research this, that. You'd be surprised at how much I know about just random stuff about different players, like their tournament accolades, and they played this, they played that, whatever. I like to study it, right? I'm kind of a student of the game, you could say. So I know Jamie Faulkner very, very well. And one of the first games I ever watched of Fab was him versus Liam Holden. Droma versus Old Tim in the quarterfinals of last year NATS at 22. I outside of Jamie, I know that Guardian Dromai games are very, very skill intensive, grindy games. And it's one of the matchups that I had practiced the most. I played against some very good players in practice, in testing, people that, final battle hardens, are known Dromai players. Guys that are definitely top 10 world in Dromai. There's no doubt about it, right? So I was very confident going into this matchup. Me and Ilias kind of done this. You have a strategy where, like, you can fatigue the Dromai. You can go out to try and fatigue them from day one, or you can be more aggressive. We decided to go more aggressive, which is like Anaphos AB1, and just try to, like, push them down, kind of fatigue them, deck them out, or put them very low health, and win from there, right? So, and I had some very good success with that in practice. But there's also, like, the element of you don't try to fatigue or be too aggressive. You just play your hands, right? Play your hands. What are your hands telling you? What's the best thing you can do? Sometimes it's just clear a dragon, sometimes it's go face. There's a lot of agency in the matchup. Anyway, we start the game. I go first, and I play, like, Imposing Visage or Showtime. I get a Pulverize, I heave it, and yes, I get a Pulverize and I heave it, and I make a size as well. So I've got 4 Surges and I've got Pulverize face up in my arsenal, and I pass. He makes, if I remember correctly, I can't remember 100% what he does. I don't think he does anything on my turn. Oh no, he sigiled and furnace. I don't remember exactly what he did on turn 2, but he didn't present any damage to me. I think he made a time snap. I don't remember. He did something. I think it was a time snap. He passed back to me. I tear asunder, pulverize him, okay? I tear asunder, pulverize. It couldn't get any better. That is a 15 dominated attack. Discard 2 on hit, and also -4 for your first attack on hit. It's one of the most devastating plays in Fab, in the current format. I did that to him. I believe he blocked like 8 or 7. I don't remember. He, like, blocked and, like, sink below from us or something like that. Anyway, he takes the damage. Loses his entire hand, like, passes back to me. I then, like, command. I think I, like, command and conquer pummel. I don't remember if that was the next turn, but, like, it might have been, like, dominated crippling. Anyway, so I present like 5 or 6 after the tier under pulverize. I'm like, I've won this game. There's no way he can come back. There's just no way. It's just not gonna happen. So I dominated. I threw, like, bro, I was drawing as good as you can. I could probably draw better. It wasn't completely perfect. It's never completely perfect, but the draws were very high roll draws. I was drawing like crazy. Stuff like Starstruck with blues, Spinal with blues, Zealous into hammer, Rouse into hammer. Maybe like 8 turns in a row where I was just presenting efficient damage. I think he must have got down to like 10 life and I was still like 35, okay? I was like, I got this. This is amazing. I'm doing so well. He has this play where, like, he plays something. I can't remember. He has, like, a very small amount of... He was very good at keeping... When I was pressuring him, he was very good at keeping hands, like, 1-card hands that would actually do something. Like, play, like, Passing Mirage or something like that, right? And he was just very good at blocking and knowing what to keep and knowing what to block with. I was very impressed with it. And then eventually he does, like, he breaks time snaps and attacks and plays, like, Passing Mirage and attacks with Kyloria. And basically eventually I'm just, like, so bullheaded
I'm like stubbornly going for his face because he's running out of cards, and because in practice, in testing, the draws that I had and the attacks that I presented, there was no one that I played against in testing that would have been able to weather the storm. They would have died. Like a lesser Droma, I would have lost to what I was doing, and I had that in my head that I could kill him here, right? Like this is what I'm supposed to do. But eventually, he starts to chip me down. He starts to build a board of like Miragai and Uvias and stuff like that. And I'm still going to face. I'm clearing like, Miragai and Promai and Passing Mirage. I really don't want to give him tempo. I don't want him to give tempo. He lost enforce me a few times, but each time he tried to do that, I had like 4 poppers in hand. I was very diligent in blocking with my non-sixes. That's what you want to do, right? You want to block with your non-sixes. Keep your sixes for poppers. Otherwise, you can run out of poppers and stuff like that. So you've got to be very, very diligent. But I think I've talked to Jamie himself. I've also talked to other people that are watching the game, and people. There's like a debate on it. Like there are certain situations where maybe I should have let Kylori hit to present a stronger threat. I don't know how many there was of that. I can't remember the exact game. It was like 30 turns. I think there was some turns where like I could have potentially let Kylori hit and it would have been so bad. I was respecting the Kylori because you can get blown out by it. There's also Jamie himself was saying like maybe I should have, there was some times where I could have pitched for AB and played a more slower play, blocked and just cleared a dragon, or went to face an AB, kept myself health total higher. I do agree looking back on the game that keeping my health total higher and playing for like the more fatigue, decking him out after I presented, because even though he was keeping himself and doing the best job possible, he was playing quite optimally. I'm still taking a lot of cards out of his hand, right, when I'm presenting big threats. So I did have a lot of deck left compared to him. He did have remembrances. But at the end of the game, so basically, long story short, we got to the end of the game. He had like 6 cards in deck. I had like 5 health or 3 health. He had like 5 health or 3 health. He had like some ghostly touch counters. He didn't have that many ghostly touch counters because I was being aggressive most of the game. But he was able to whittle me down with attacks, like stuff like Dust Up, right? Really annoying. Dust Ups. But basically, we got to the end of the game. Time was called. We both had like no. Ironically, I'm normally the slower player. Like there's a whole story, a whole history I have with Jamie playing the game and going to ties and stuff. But it's not something I'll get into this video. But ironically, I did make a great effort after the last tie I had with him to improve my speed in the game, and I think he was in the tank a lot of this game because obviously I was being the aggressor. But I certainly didn't have. He had more game time than me for sure. Like I was quite fast in this game. But we did go to time just because, like, bro, it was like 35 turns. It's Dromai versus Guardian. It's just a disgusting matchup. Disgusting grindy matchup. But long story short, we go to time. He, lays out the usual, who should concede, why it should concede. But I said, let's play this out. I think I can still win this game because he was free health, right? I Terra Sundered him with Hammer, forgetting that he had Crown of Providence. It didn't really make a difference anyway. He blocked it out. And I thought maybe I could kill him my next turn. I think I had like something in my hand that could do something. I can't remember. But anyway, he presents like sweep and blow and something else. And I realized at that time that I was probably going to lose the game. I felt like I was going to lose the game. So I tried to concede after he played his turn out after time. But obviously that wasn't allowed. We like appealed with judge and stuff. But he appealed with judge, but it didn't work or whatever. And then we took a tie. Which was fine. He ended up top 8 in the end of the day. So it wasn't really that much of a damager. But the more of the story is, this went to a tie. But I should have lost. This was a tie, or a draw. I guess draw makes it easier. I got caught out by not playing against people, or against that level. I felt like when I played against Jamie, I could tell. I spoke to him, a bit on Discord after this, the few days after the Nats, and I could tell very early on that he had played this matchup a lot. Like you can just tell, like the way he's responding, he's not out of his comfort zone, and just. You could just tell that he'd played that spot a lot, especially that matchup into the Guardian. And I just felt he was tiers above what I'd seen before. When I'd played other Dromais, I felt that Jamie was a tier above in terms of that matchup and what he was doing and his knowledge of the deck and stuff. It was true mastery. And it was one of my big takeaways from this tournament and this weekend is that going into the next tournament, I want to get some reps at that level. It's just very hard to get Dromai reps at that level, that world class level, because there's only a few in the world. There's a few people in the world that play this game, that played that deck, and what he did against me in that tournament that they could do. There are most Dromais, 99% of Dromais. I stand by this. 99% of Dromais that I played against. Or I have played against that I could play against, and I had the draws that I did in that game, and what I played would have lost that game. So I was super impressed with his play. I thought it was super high level, very high level, and I also I was just, yeah, I was super impressed. I'll be honest with you. I was completely honest. I was extremely impressed by the way he played that game because I drew very well and I was repped into that deck. I repped the deck. I knew what the matchup was, but I was so convinced that he wasn't going to be able to weather the storm because of what I had played before, right? Like I didn't think he'd be able to just the Terrace under Pulverize, the Command and Conquer Pummel. I was just juicing him. It never once entered my head that he would be able to come back in a game, and that's what he did. And I believe that I still had the lines to win the game. I still believe that I could have won the game if I had like played. Let's say I played against Jamie like 20 times for that tournament, and I was like repped and like what he was gonna do against his deck as well. I think that I could have won the game, and what the win would have looked like is recognizing that he has tempo now, letting him have tempo, playing a bit more optimally on the blocks, not blocking Kylora every time, but mainly. The thing that would have been different is that I started to sacrifice health late in the game because I just wanted to try and kill him. That time I start pitching for AB and start playing a more slower game and just running him out of stuff because I still had a crap ton of poppers. Running him out, fatiguing him through blocking and damage, like just clearing the important dragons. Like he was like running out of dragons. He remembrance back like 3 mirror guys. He had like 1 more remembrance. But I had the capabilities and the tools to win this game. I just had never been put in that spot where I was drawing so heavily, but I still have to pivot into a slower game. That had never happened. So a draw, but really a win to Jamie if the game went a few more minutes later because I had like no health, he had like ghosty touch, etc. But the moral of the story is just very impressed by his play and really made me think. One of the reasons why I'm continuing to play Bravo is because he's played that deck for so long, and it shows you get rewarded for playing the same deck over and over again and being put in spots. Like there was no spots I could put Jamie in that he wouldn't have seen before on Bravo against Guardian, and I think that paid so much dividends in this tournament and just tournaments he plays that I want to get to that level on Bravo. Like if I can get to that level on Bravo, then you know you're not doing too badly. So yeah, again, kudos to Jamie in this game. I take a draw, so I'm now 8 wins, 1 draw, and 2 losses. So we know there's an outside chance that if I lose this game, I could make it like 8th, but most of the time you're not gonna make it on 8 wins, 1 loss, and 3 draws with the amount of players we had, and there was a lot of draws happening at top tables and stuff. And there was just no way that it was going to be safe. So I run into the last game, which is Azuri. I got a lot to say about this one as well. This is Johnny Chapman, by the way. I believe it's spelled like this. I could be wrong. Johnny Chapman. Playing Azuri. Okay, so I go into this game and I'm like, I don't mind Azuri. I think it's a bit coin tossy the way we did it. The way we built the deck and the way but let me give you a little backstory. Before we go into this game, I want to give a little story of how this evolved and why this happened. So, maybe a week before the tournament, we were talking about matchups, me and Ilias, okay? Talking about Bravo and stuff like that. We talked about Azuri. And I said I just fatigue Azuri. I was playing against Talishar, like randoms on Talishar, and I was playing like, I would present like Buckler and Titan's Fist. Okay, I'd present Buckler and Titan's Fist and like 63, 66 cards, and I would just fatigue Azuri online. Then Ilias said no. One of the other guys that we play with was playing a list that could not be fatigued by Bravo. So I decided to play my style Bravo with the Buckler into Ilias playing that list. And the list was like, it was a contract list. My understanding, it was a contract list, and he was running like what I think it was 1 or 2 remembrance. I think it was 1 remembrance, like a 70 card pile, maybe like 68 cards. I can't remember. There's a lot of cards, and he had like 3 give and takes. So the give and take recursive loop, and I played it a bunch of times, and I could not fatigue it. I just couldn't fatigue it. I just couldn't. It just wasn't a thing. It really just wasn't a thing. So I decided at that point I can't do this. If I see a 0, I'm just gonna lose. So we then decide to move to a 60 card aggro plan into Azuri, which was like pummels, remove the staunches, remove sigils. It was just an aggressive list. It was kind of similar to what we run into Lexi. And when I ran that into Azuri, then it was a lot better, and it felt favored to Bravo. So he was very happy with that. We left it at that. So we run into Azuri, and we just present aggro list, and I was happy with that. So I was under the impression, you just be aggressive and you trade better with like Zealous and Rouse. So I was like, okay, that's fine. That's what we're gonna do, and that's gonna be Gucci. So I went from fatigue and Azuri, with that fatigue package, to what I was to that aggro package. So fast forward, I am playing in a winning in against Johnny Chapman on Azuri at UK NATS. for the top 8. We start the game. I believe I put him on the play. I can't remember, but it doesn't really matter. He presents, and we start playing the game. And I get to my turn. I give him like a zealous whatever. He blocks. Blah, blah, blah. Eventually, he starts to play tempo. He starts playing stuff like nimblism, hurls. He's playing nimblism, hurls. Like death touch, the usual stuff like surgicals. Basically, he keeps stripping my hand. He's playing like shakedowns, like isolating to shakedown, and he was just stripping my hand consistently. Like I was holding a hand to try and play it, but he would disrupt me. And it got to the point where like I was like, this isn't working. I was so hell bent on being aggressive and trying to trade with him because that's what I had learned. That was what my muscle memory and my testing told me, that I had to trade with Azuri. But I started to lose health, and it got to the point where I realized too late, where it's like I can't do this. At one time he banished 2 of my Starstrucks with a surgical. I also made an error, by the way. I went to play Sync Below. I went to play Sync Below on Shred. No, sorry, Sync Below on Surgical. Then he shredded it, and I called Judge over just to confirm that it was defending. It was. But what I had thought in my head, for some reason, I thought that Shred only worked on cards that are blocked from hand. I think that's a Dory thing. I can't remember. I just had that in my head for some reason. I played Sync Below with Mars and he just shredded it. It didn't really matter. It didn't make a big difference. It was obviously a misplay by me. And that's when I lost. I think I lost my 2 Starstrucks. I can't remember. But I lost 2 Starstrucks at one point. I think it might have been Leave No Witnesses. Who knows at this point? But anyway, so the point is, that mistake wasn't the mistake that lost me the game. What lost me the game is that, no discredit to Johnny Chapman. Johnny Chapman's a fantastic player. He played unbelievably well. He played as well as you could, right? But I presented the wrong game plan. I tried to be aggressive. I realized when he was starting to life gap me a little bit, and I then had to pivot to a plan of like blocking out and throw my hammer for 4. And my deck wasn't that good at doing that because I had like Zealous in my deck. I had like Pummels, had a lot of 2 blocks. And yeah, so eventually he just kills me because I have low health than him. But I start to block out and hammer for 4. And when I hammer for 4 and block out, I realized that the play, like the line of that, was not good for him. It was uncomfortable, or like it was just more effective than me trying to trade with him because he could disrupt my hand, but I've got hammer for 4, right? And I realized very quickly after the game, it was a very intense game, and he even apologized for the intensity. I don't think he did anything wrong, but you could cut the tension with a butter knife because we both knew that the win meant that we were top 8, right? And that's quite important. So, very nice guy. Again, similar to, I met so many good people on the weekend. It's very similar to Osama. The losses that I had in this tournament were to, people that were very pleasant to interact with. They weren't sharky. They were good players, and I'd rather lose to someone like that than someone who's a bit of an arsehole. So I was quite happy with that. But basically, going back to the game, I lost, and I realized quickly. I pivoted late, but I realized quickly that if I presented my fatigue plan, I'd probably win this game, almost certainly. And what basically happened is, I didn't know that I knew there was 2 types of Azuris, or there was multiple types of Azuris, but I didn't realize how to spot the difference. And also I didn't realize that it meant that there was a difference for me to play into them. So what I mean by that is what the heroes that I used to play before Bravo was like Dromai, Lexi, and Viserai. And when I played those 3 heroes, first of all, they all have a great matchup into Azuri, except for maybe Lexi, don't get me wrong. Lexi is a bad matchup, but Azuri and Viserai, I played Lexi the least amount, but Azuri and Viserai for sure, Dromai and Viserai for sure have a favoured matchup into Azuri. I had no problems with them. And you would always just play it the same way. It doesn't matter what Azuri they came, you make dragons, you kill them with dragons. If they you make rune chants, you kill them with rune chants. So it was never a thing. It was never a difference for me. There was never a difference. But what I learned from this tournament, first of all, Contract Azuri runs Master Petition, and Johnny presented Crown of Providence. So straight away that tells me he's not on contract. And also what I learned is that if you're playing against Contract Azuri with Bravo, you want to play it aggressively because they can out-fatigue you. But this list here that Johnny presented was very fatigable. There's a few things to it. He presented 69 cards, and I presented 60 cards. At the end of the game, we had the same amount of cards in deck. Okay? So if I just present like 63 or 66 cards, present my Buckler, I didn't have my staunch responses and staunch response, and I just block out and I just hammer for 4. I'll fatigue him. He has no remembrance. I got his deck list and looked here and played again and got Ilias on the deck list and played him and tested this. He has no remembrance and he has like 7 blues in the deck. So even presenting 2 daggers into my face, first of all, it attacks for 2. My hammer attacks for 4 of a blue. He's his 2 for 2 cards. He can't actually do daggers effectively because he's got so many reds. It's a red line deck. But I didn't know this. Let me put my L. Let me own my L here. I didn't know this going to a tournament. I was clueless. So there was just no way I was going to win this game. I just presented a completely wrong plan into him. Kudos to him. He played it fantastically, no doubt about it. But I do believe I fare a lot better if I present a fatigue package. I actually spoke to him and he had a problem with fatigue Dory. Although fatigue Dory is a lot worse for him than Bravo. I knew when seeing a deck that fatigue could be a problem for him. I asked him, like, well, how does this deal with fatigue? So I think if we play this again and I play fatigue, I'd like to know what happens, you know? Obviously, it's not 100% win. This is not how card games work. He could full well win that game as well. But that's definitely the right plan. I definitely have a better win percentage going into this if I present... no, I don't have any buckler. I actually practiced it with Ilias and I played Anaphos because you still need to hedge between the two types, right? You can't just present buckler because buckler's awful into contract. So I still present Anaphos, but I present Anaphos of like 64 cards or 66 cards even, but probably 64 cards and more defensive tools and playing defensively, playing slower. Because I was trading with early. I was like, no blocks, and then he just like disrupts the crap out of my hand or my arsenal. When what I would do from the beginning, if I played him again, is 64 with Anaphos, I would block out and just keep a card for Anaphos. Anaphos 4, Anaphos 4, Anaphos 4, Anaphos 4, block out, Anaphos 4. When he isolates me, block out, hopefully keep, that's what I wasn't doing. Keep a direct in arsenal at all times. So I do get punished by like, Command and Conquer, but he wasn't running backstab. So there's no backstab into Command and Conquer. So he was not running any blue backstabs or any backstabs point blank. So if he presents an isolate, my play pattern would be like block a card from hand. If he switches it out, just in case he comes in with like Command and Conquer, play Sync Blow in the defense reaction phase because you can do so, right? Because it's from D-React, it gets over to Dominate. So my play line would be keep a D-React in arsenal, block out as much as you can, and just for hammer for 4, and I think you win the game. So that's how it went. So I finished 8 wins, 1 draw, 3 losses, and we kind of knew that I was out of top 8. I mean, it was possible. It was possible. There was a crazy situation. I'm not 100% sure. I can't really remember. I think I worked it out because I finished 10th. Like, it was still a chance that I'd make top 8, but it was very, very unlikely. I could be wrong in this. I'm happy to be corrected, but I think because Declan finished in 9th with 9 wins. He was 9-3, which was shocking. So he bubbled, and I finished 10th. I believe Hamish from Push to Point, I believe, conceded to Sean Nolden to push him into the top 8 because I don't think Hamish was live. So I think, if I'm not wrong, if Harrison Shaw, who was already locked, beats Declan and keeps him on 8 wins, and Hamish from Push to Point beats Sean Nolden, I think I make top 8. I think that's the only line for me to make top 8 on this record. I think there was a shot, but it was very unlikely because obviously people are gonna. I don't know if he conceded, but there was something about it. I think he let him into the top 8 because he wasn't live, which is fair enough. It's a generous thing to do for sure. But I think there was a line for me to go in. But at the end of the day, I don't deserve to go in because I lost my last 2 games. Right? I went 1 win, 1 draw, 1 loss. So I needed to win 2 games. So this is what I was saying. That Azuri game, I felt was the only game the whole tournament that I actually made egregious mistakes. I probably made a couple small mistakes here or there. I think in the draw my game against Jamie, I don't think I necessarily made too many mistakes. I just didn't play as optimally as him. Because I was like used to not playing that. I didn't have to play that optimally to beat Dromai previously. So I got debated by my test in that game. But against Azuri of Johnny, I just was uncomfortable. I had not seen and didn't know about the different Azuris because I'd only been playing the brother for a month, right? So I'm still learning the matchup, still learning the deck, and it's one of the reasons why I looked at this tournament and I thought to myself, if I had been playing Bravo for 2 years and I was experienced against Dromai to that level, like one of the best guys in the world on the deck, and I knew about the Azuri and I presented the right package of Adafos 64 and just blocked out, I could be looking at a 10-1, no sorry, a 10-2 run here, you know? That was what it was. I didn't feel like I had lost. There was no game in this tournament, except for maybe Osama in round 2, where I got blown up by Lightning Press. I think even then there might have been a line that I just couldn't see that I could have won. Maybe it was correct to block out and just play that. But then again, I don't know. He probably just kills me after anyway. I think Osama's the only game, the whole tournament, that I felt like it was very hard to win with the luck that I was given, or the variance. But with the Dromai Azuri game at the end, the draw and the loss, I felt there were lines to win. I just didn't have the experience or the expertise to win it. So this is why I really want to stick to Bravo. In conclusion, like I want to stick with Bravo going to Bright Lights. Obviously, Mech can be dangerous for Bravo. That's just one of the worst matchups. So if she gets stronger, or there was a chance that I come off the deck. If Bravo doesn't have a game, it would just be silly for me to present it. But I want to do everything within my power to stay on the deck, because I think, I'm not even close to the ceiling. I think I'm still learning the deck. And I think there's still a lot for me to go on it. So I'm a very competitive player. Like I'm very intensely involved in the games. I really care about my results. Like I'm not gonna lie at all. So I wasn't sore losery, but I was a bit disappointed finishing 10th. Even though it was my first tournament and people said, it was a good run for my first tournament, which I agree with. I put a lot of time into the game. Like I played the game a lot. I studied the game a lot. So I was really gunning for that top 8, and it was right there. I could taste it. But I was salty for maybe like 10 minutes, and then my teammate, I drove up with Alex Kitsu, kindly picked me up from Heathrow, drove us up. We had a terrible journey because train strikes, 6 hours or whatever it was going up there. He had never driven more than like 2 hours, so it was a whole different adventure. My buddy, and he's my teammate, he actually was live for top 8, made top 8, finished I think second or first seed. And shortly after this, went to eat some food. He was playing his top 8 games. I went to Pizza Express with some of the lads. And then I came back in. He was in his semi-final game. And he went into the final, ended up winning the tournament. So even though I was salty about the whole situation, about being 10th, never rude or anything like that, always cordial, I was disappointed. That only lasted for like 30 minutes because Alex won the tournament. And then we went out to eat. We had some drinks that night, celebrating the win as a team. We put a lot of time as a team. We test a lot. So I was super happy about that. The saltiness was just completely overtaken by joy. My teammate winning, our team, getting the NATS champ was very, very good. So that's kind of it. In conclusion, this was my tournament report. If anyone's watched the whole thing, I really do appreciate it. It took me, an hour 42. It's unedited, so it's going to be a bit rough around the edges. I do really appreciate you watching this. I hope you can get any information. If anyone's got any questions in the comments about the deck or draft or anything like that, the one that I had, I'm more than happy to answer. I think I'm going to make some more fab videos going forward. This is my first one. I'm definitely going to do what I believe my strategy about Monarch draft. And I believe it was a consistent strategy, even though a lot of people were struggling with it. So I'll make a video to kind of my thoughts on that. It'll be obviously a bit shorter than this. That'll come out in the next couple of days. But that's it, really. I mean, I finished 8 wins, 10th place. Going to Worlds. Didn't make Worlds on this. Let me just show you quickly. This is just a little bit off topic. I mean, this video is so long now anyway, I may as well just show you. I didn't make Worlds there, but Worlds in Barcelona, so I did everything in my power to qualify in any means I could, because I want, a number of my teammates are going. They've qualified, they got PTIs, or, they won NATS. I am 19th on the 90-day XP here. It was close until a few days ago, but if you look at this, I have a full 100-point gap on 50th. I have a 100-point gap on 50th. I have like no drop off. I tactically worked out when this was going to happen, where I took a break 3 months back, so I have no drop off. So I think there's like 10 points going to drop off this. So I mean, I booked my hotel and everything. I booked my flights. I'm pretty much locked for top 50 XP. So, well, super excited, guys. Bright Lights, big cities. We're going to be drafting again. As soon as Bright Lights comes out, I'm going to be a fiend on it again. Smashing out in runaways. Oh, shout outs, by the way. My team, of course, London High Rollers, Zhang, Alex, Arian, Stefano, Shamir,
are the kind of the guys that test a lot, and there's a bunch as well that are a bit more kind of semi-competitive, casual. Some people, life takes over, right? So some people are taking a break, like Shen, David. Um, there's a few more. Luke, Gavin. There's a few more peeps as well. I can't remember everyone off the top of my head right now. I'm kind of exhausted. I'm not gonna lie, guys. 30-degree heat. But yeah, shout out to them. Shout out to Alan Loop for his deck tech. That really helped me out as well. Ilias and the boys over there in that Discord. Like Max, Gilliam, and who else is around? Shout out that helped me with this deck and help me play. All my London locals, of course. And yeah, we're just gonna turn up to Worlds and see what happens. Yeah, I'm gonna end now. Take care, guys. Thanks for watching. And yeah, peace out until the next one.